Before we dive into this incredible HFY sci-fi story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Your support helps bring more epic tales of humanity's courage against the stars. And don't forget, share this video with a friend who loves sci-fi as much as you do. Picture this: the royal palace of Andromeda rising majestically against the twin moons of Xerion Prime, its crystalline towers reflecting starlight in 1,000 colorful fragments. But behind those translucent walls, sadness had settled like a persistent shadow. Queen Andromeda watched her daughter through the panoramic window of her chambers. Princess Gemini 8, only 16 solar cycles old, sat motionless in her magnetic levitation chair, staring at the hanging gardens without showing any interest whatsoever. Her iridescent scales, which once sparkled like stars when she was happy, now maintained a dull, melancholic tone. 3 years. 3 long years since the Fragment Wars had ended, leaving deep scars throughout the entire system. The surprise attack on the mining colony, where Gemini had been on a youth diplomatic mission, changed everything. The tunnel collapse had left her with severe spinal damage, preventing her from using her legs. For a species that prided itself on natural agility and grace, this was devastating. Your Majesty, Counselor Zeta's voice interrupted her thoughts. The new human mechanic has arrived for fleet maintenance service, Andromeda sighed. Humans had become valuable allies after the war, their technology perfectly complementing Andromedan capabilities. But she wasn't in the mood for formalities. Let him proceed with his work, she replied, absently. What the Queen didn't know was that this particular human would bring something no advanced technology had managed to provide: hope. Jazz Thompson adjusted his toolbox on his shoulder as he walked through the palace corridors. At 42, the former Terran Space Force engineer had found purpose working on maintenance of the complex Andromedan aircraft. Beside him, his 15-year-old son Jazz carried a digital tablet, always curious about the new technologies they encountered. "Dad, those ships use quantum distortion fields, right?" Jazz asked, his brown eyes gleaming with curiosity. "That's right, kid. And you're going to help me calibrate the systems today." Jazz smiled. Unlike his more reserved father, the teenager had an effervescent personality and a natural ability to find humor in any situation. It was this lightness that made him special, though he didn't know it yet. While they worked in the main hangar, a solitary figure caught Jazz's attention. Through one of the palace windows, he could see a young girl in a floating chair, completely motionless. "Who is she, Dad?" Marcus followed his son's gaze. "Princess Gemini 8. I heard that well, the war was cruel to her." Jazz watched for several more minutes, noting the princess's hunched posture, as if the weight of the world was on her shoulders. Without saying anything, he formed a plan. The next day, while Marcus was immersed in maintaining a space fighter, Jazz quietly slipped away and found his way to the palace gardens. There she was again, the alien princess, in exactly the same spot. "Hello," Jazz said cheerfully, waving. Gemini 8 turned around, surprised. Her large orbital eyes, characteristic of Andromedans, widened at the sight of the young human. You shouldn't be here," she said in hesitant galactic standard. "Probably not," Jazz admitted with a mischievous smile. "But I saw you there and thought maybe you'd like some company." "I'm Jazz, Gemini 8, she replied automatically, then frowned. "Why do you care?" Jazz sat down on the artificial grass near her chair. "Because you look like I felt when we had to leave Earth. Alone, even when surrounded by people." For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. "You left your home?" "Yeah, my dad got this job here and, well, sometimes starting over is scary." For the next hour, Jazz talked about Earth, about how humans dealt with difficulties and gradually managed to draw some responses from Gemini. When he had to leave, she was almost smiling. This became routine. Every day, while Marcus worked, Jazz would find Gemini in the gardens. He brought funny stories about Earth, showed videos of terrestrial animals doing silly things, and gradually got to know the person behind the royal title. Gemini began talking about her life before the accident, about how she loved flying through the palace air currents using her natural membranous wings. Jazz, in turn, shared his dream of becoming an engineer like his father, but specialized in creating technologies that helped people with disabilities. "On Earth," Jazz said one day, "I met this guy who lost his legs in an accident. He became one of the best wheelchair racing pilots who ever existed. He said his wheels became his new legs, just better ones?" "Better?" Gemini asked, intrigued. "Yeah! He could make turns that walking people never could, reach incredible speeds. He didn't see himself as limited. He saw himself as different. And different can be extraordinary. That's when something changed in Gemini's eyes. For the first time in 3 years, her scales began to show a faint glow. The transformation didn't go unnoticed by Queen Andromeda. She had noticed that her daughter was leaving her chambers, had started eating properly again, and most importantly, that her scales were regaining their brightness. Intrigued, she decided to find out what was happening. Hidden behind a crystal column, Andromeda observed the interaction between her daughter and the young human. What she saw left her speechless. Jazz was telling a story about a terrestrial cat that had learned to surf on a robotic vacuum cleaner, mimicking the movements with exaggerated gestures. Gemini couldn't stop laughing, a crystalline sound that echoed through the gardens like music. But it wasn't just the laughter that impressed the queen. It was the way Jazz looked at Gemini, not with pity or discomfort, but with genuine friendship and respect. To him, she wasn't the disabled princess. She was simply Gemini. That night, Andromeda summoned Marcus for a private audience. "Your son," she began without preamble, "is doing something that all our doctors, therapists, and counselors failed to do." Marcus swallowed hard, fearing the worst. "If he did something inappropriate, Your Majesty, He made my daughter laugh," Andromeda interrupted, her voice heavy with emotion. "For the first time in 3 years, I heard Gemini laugh genuinely." Marcus remained silent, processing the information. "I want to offer you both a permanent position in the palace," the queen continued, "not just as a mechanic, but as family. Your species has something mine lost over centuries of technological evolution, the ability to find joy in small things, to transform adversity into strength." Months later, Jazz was officially studying to become a specialist engineer in assistive technology, working directly with Andromedan scientists. Together, he and Gemini developed modifications to her levitation chair that transformed it into something extraordinary. She could fly again, in a completely new way. The day Gemini first tested the modifications, soaring through Xerion Prime's skies in her enhanced chair, performing maneuvers impossible for any normal Andromedan, Queen Andromeda understood a fundamental truth about humanity. Humans weren't special because of their technology or military strength. They were special because of their ability to see possibilities where others saw limitations, to find hope in darkness, and to transform differences into superpowers. And sometimes, all someone needs to rediscover their own strength is to have someone who believes they already possess it. Gemini's laughter echoed across the skies, brighter than any star, reminding everyone that true healing sometimes comes not from medicine, but from friendship, and that the human spirit has the power to touch lives across the entire galaxy. And that, friends, is what makes us human. Not our weapons, not our technology, but our ability to see the extraordinary in what others call broken. Because sometimes the greatest victories aren't won on battlefields, they're won in moments when someone learns to laugh again.